Well, you've played D&D and you're like, what's on the other side of that GM screen? It's a manifested existential crisis with a dash of imposter syndrome. But you get used to it. Kidding aside, being a GM or game master and running games with your friends is amazing. Also, to curtail confusion right away, GM or game master and DM or dungeon master are pretty interchangeable. One of my favorite things in D&D is being the GM and knowing the situation the players are in and seeing them come up with creative and inventive ways to solve this issue. Crossing the threshold from player to GM often is seen as the like of hitting puberty and then becoming an adult. This is a common misconception. Being the GM is not the progression of D&D. It is just a separate role that is taken, usually by someone who is more well-versed in D&D because there are a lot of rules. It's helpful if the GM knows most of them, so during the game it doesn't get bogged down by looking those rules up. So I think it's no coincidence that most people who GM have been playing for a while, but it shouldn't be mistaken for being better or a higher rank than people who only play D&D as players. This all being said, GMing can be a lot of work, and there definitely can be stress. With a game plan and understanding though, anyone can be a GM and get to watch their players do crazy things. I really like the way the 5th edition book describes the many hats worn by GMs, painting them as masteries. First we have the Mastery of Worlds. This represents you, as a GM, are the creator of the campaign world. Some GMs opt to create their own world from scratch, while some may choose to adapt a favorite fictional work like Harry Potter, or some use published settings like Faerun, the official setting for D&D 5th edition. No matter which path you choose for this, you will need to maintain a consistency throughout the setting to breathe some believability into your world. The first one is really the most difficult one, because the other two will just require the common knowledge of the fiction between all the players to work. While creating your universe or world from scratch will require a lot of prep work. The main focus here is to lay down your universe or multiverse's laws. Like, is there a plane of fire? Is this where the embodiment of fire lives? And are they the source that allows their followers to use, for instance, burning hands? How does gravity work on your world? The questions can go on to provide more and more detail for your world. A tip here is to start small. If you start with a complicated pantheon for each of your 15 planes in your multiverse, the task may become so overwhelming you will find excuses to stop or delay your work. Start with just the material plane, similar to Earth if that's helpful, and build from there. Our second mastery is the Mastery of Adventures. As the GM, you will be the player at the table expected to bring hooks, plots, NPCs, and encounters to the table. Your group may prefer a more guided method or a more open sandbox style when it comes to these things, but it is still the GM who will bring these elements to the game. This is an area where tomes can be written. There is so much that can be said, but I will try to stay focused on broad strokes. First, some key elements of a good adventure. Something needs to be at stake. If nothing is threatened, or the threat is not urgent, there's little point for heroes. The next element is things need to matter. Players don't want to solve the same problems over and over again, even if there are minor differences. Players want to have an impact on the world that they are in, and feel like their actions carry weight. The last element is the element of surprise. If players know what an outcome is, or can easily see through their possible choices, this can take the tension out of the game. Adding believable and acceptable surprises keeps the players on their toes and engaged. An easy way to deploy these with pretty minimal effort is to use a published module. These can vary in the amount of work done for you and the quality of work, but are still worth looking into in my opinion. The GM's Guide does have plenty of tables though to essentially randomly select different aspects of an adventure, from the villains, different plots, twists, encounters, and even other NPCs. This will most likely be the largest investment of time, especially if you don't go with a published module. Even if you plan on getting a module, you will have to read it and become somewhat familiar with it. This part can also be where a lot of GMs get to use their creativity. Some enjoy creating or prepping framework that the players will get to play with. Our last mastery is the Mastery of Rules. You don't have to have all the rules memorized, but you are still the master of them. It is said with great power comes great responsibility, and this rings very true to this mastery. You are the final word when it comes to rulings on outcomes of dice rolls, what rules are applicable in what situations, and what the rule is or means. But wielding this power incorrectly or for the wrong reasons will quickly find your table without any players. This is my first video on being a Dungeon Master. Until next time, fellow Kobolds, please like and subscribe. Bye bye.